What is going on, you guys? Admiral Tori here, and welcome aboard for another World of Warship video on my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be sailing the Tier 8 American battleship, the North Carolina. Before I get into this video about the North Carolina, I want to announce something, or rather point out a detail on my channel. I checked statistics on my channel when it comes to viewers, and the viewers on average who are not subscribed to this channel watch 5 minutes of my video before clicking out, and my subscribers watch 15 minutes before giving up on me. So I decided that I'm going to try to aim for much shorter videos around the 20 to 30 minute ballpark. And the reason why is that I don't want to put too much time into a video, because I traditionally do 2 gameplay with the intro and then end the video. So I decided to just do a basic intro and one good gameplay I can actually come up with from playing the ship, and then end the video. And the reason why is that if people don't really watch my videos and they let the other 30 minutes go to, I wouldn't say waste, but not willing to watch the other 30 minutes, then that's a sign that I might be putting too much time on my videos, and I don't want that to happen, because some people just click on 40-minute videos and just find out that, I'm not sure if this guy is good or not. I don't want to waste my 40 minutes of my time to watch this video if this is good or bad. So I'm going to try to cut it as much as I can, and then keep it as simple with the intro, and then find a nice gameplay to go with this video. Now, as always, in my description, every time I post a World of Warship video, knowing for a fact that World of Warship does tend to last a long time, especially when I'm doing 2 gameplay, is that I always post a timeline, and the timeline is pretty simple. You just click on the number. If you've been on YouTube long enough, you should know, and that number would be like 15 minutes to 15 minutes 16 seconds, or 15 minutes 30 seconds, whatever the number is. It will definitely skip to the part of the video that people want to see, like gameplay, if they choose not to hear me talk about the ship in the beginning, because I really do enjoy looking at the facts about ships and their significance when it comes to history. I've always been into history. If you guys are curious why I'm really into history, it's because history has stories that you cannot experience again, and they're always interesting stories. You always want to hear stories from people. It's the same way as conversing with somebody who has an interesting day. So I think every ship deserves a story to be told out in the open, rather than just talk about the ship effectiveness. I think the ship is crap. I think the ship is good. The ship does this, that. I do that right a little bit after. But since I'm aiming for a shorter video, I'm just going to point out the major facts about ships from now on, rather than the interesting stories, unless the story is just so interesting that I cannot pass on. So without further ado, let's get into the North Carolina. Right away, the North Carolina is a new generation American battleship. She is considered the progenitor to the other class battleship, which was the South Dakota and the Iowa, meaning that if you play the Iowa, and if there was ever a South Dakota with the Montana, because the Montana is also part of the family of the North Carolina, it's due to the fact that the North Carolina, she was a completely revolutionary ship, I would describe it. And it's really hard for me to find the correct words for this, but she is revolutionary in many ways. And one of the ways was that technology wise, when it comes to naval during World War II, out of World War II, I think the United States might come out as the #1 country when it comes to technology, right next to the Germans and the British. Yes, the Germans had V2 rockets. The British were developing the early computer, when it comes to calculating, cracking the Enigma code by the Germans. And there was a lot of technology that was happening during World War II. And we take it for granted when it comes to warfare, because warfare is a period of time where a country actually steps it up and push forward to advancing in civilization and all these technology stuff. What the North Carolina revolutionary had compared to the counterparts like the Japanese, the Germans, the Soviets, all the other nations that are fighting in World War II. When it comes to naval, the United States of America had probably the best setup, and the word setup can be interpreted different ways. The Japanese had the Yamato, the Germans has the Bismarck, and the British has a bunch of King George V class ships, or whatever it is. We can always compare these ships in terms of performance, but the biggest question that poses for every naval engineer. If you were an engineer and you're trying to build the most effective ship while keeping it within the limits, because a country has a certain degree of spending their resources into building these ships, you ask yourself, what is the ship's purpose? When you look at the Yamato and when you look at the Bismarck, you realize the Bismarck and Yamato were built for really the World War I theory, or rather philosophy, of battleship against battleships and battleship dominating against the cruisers, blowing ships up with their big caliber armaments, or rather high fire rate like the Bismarck with 15-inch guns, and beefed up with a bunch of armor to endure the 60-inch, 15-inch shells coming at you. With the North Carolina, the Iowa, and the South Dakota, the Montana being one of these ships, but we're not able to leave the ship docks. If you guys are curious why I don't include the Montana, because the Montana was not an actual ship that is able to enter service. She was actually a ship in the shipyard. She just wasn't finished at the ends of the war, since the war was coming to an end with the Japanese and the Germans. And as a result, as the Americans realized from experience, aircraft carriers are #1 priority. But speaking of aircraft carriers, this also relates to my point. The North Carolina, her duties were completely different and purpose different from the Bismarck and Yamato when it comes to the battleship design. Her duty was to escort aircraft carriers, and this is very important because aircraft carriers in World War II, especially in the Pacific theater, are the dominant motherships of all ships in the warfare. If you don't have an aircraft carrier and you're fighting against a nation on the ocean, you're gonna lose anyway. Like, the only possible way you can actually win in World War II without an aircraft carrier is to strategy. You outsmart your enemy, but whatever it is, you just don't have the capabilities to win against another nation when you don't have an aircraft carrier. And that's the reality, because aircraft carriers can send their torpedo planes to sink your ships and destroy your entire fleet. It takes a good amount of ships to actually take down planes, #1, during World War II. There was a story of how a Japanese transport tried to transport the troops, but what they failed to do was that they didn't have escort ships, only a couple of destroyers. So when the Enterprise plane came in to sink their ships, they were faced with little resistance, but it's still dangerous, obviously, when you're going against AA. But the AA was not enough to stop the planes, and these group of planes were like 10, 20, I don't know how many of them, but it was just enough to stop the Japanese transport because they failed to have any good escorts. And yes, the Japanese Zeros appear, but it was not apparent with the enough AA to actually defend the transport, which led to the failure of the mission. So, with the Bismarck, the Yamato, they were built for against battleships. The North Carolina, the South Dakota, and Iowa were built against battleships also, but they put most of their emphasis on their design when it comes to escorting, the purpose. With the North Carolina being the highest decorated American battleship because she was one of the only operational ships during World War II and the early of World War II, because the Japanese had completely obliterated the naval fleet in Hawaii, Pearl Harbor, which is majority of the American older battleship, like in Nevada class, the New York, I think the New York was also part of the Colorado, West Virginia, whatever old dreadnought design, especially the USS Arizona class. Those ships are different from the North Carolina because the North Carolina is actually a decade ahead compared to the previous ship. It took the United States of America a good solid decade to develop a new class of battleship because they questions the change in technology and what challenges they face in the future. And the North Carolina proves this point. The North Carolina, where 16-inch guns are capable of taking down battleships, but they're not really built entirely. Her purpose was not entirely to take down battleship. Her entire purpose was to escort the mothership, and that is the Yorktown carriers, the Essex class carriers, the Lexington, all the aircraft carriers in the Pacific there, all these amazing ships. Her main purpose, alongside with the Cleveland class, because the Cleveland, everyone knows the Cleveland has superb AA. The Cleveland doesn't have torpedoes like the Japanese. The Japanese heavy cruiser were built for all-around, all-purpose attack other cruiser rather than escort. If you look into all the American ships, you notice that the American ships have superb AA from the Bull 4s. The Swedish did a great job supplying the Americans with Bull 4 technology. And the North Carolina is apparently a escort ship rather than a battleship against battleship brawler. And don't get me wrong, the North Carolina can definitely brawl with other battleship with her design. It's just that I want to point out that she is really an escort battleship rather than a battleship to battleship brawler like the Yamato and the Bismarck. So her purpose in the war has served such great extent, and she was a pivotal ship, a very important ship, because she and her sister ship, the USS Washington, were the only American ships that were available to actually defend the Yorktown class carriers, which consists of the Hornet, the Enterprise, and there was one more ship I totally forgot. I can't believe I don't remember the other ship. My gosh. The Hornet, the Enterprise, and what was that other ship? There was, oh, the Yorktown. I'm so stupid. There was only 3 ships. Yeah, the Yorktown. Okay, originally a ship. How could I forget that? The Yorktown and the Hornet, I believe, were sunk and was left with the Enterprise. The Enterprise is the only aircraft carrier that was able to survive the war as the Yorktown class, with the USS Ranger alongside with her, and the Saratoga, which were the original ships, the only 3 carriers that survived from the beginning to the end of the war. The Enterprise being the highest decorated American ship out of World War II, with the North Carolina being the highest decorated American battleship out of World War II. And the reason why the American North Carolina was the highest decorated American battleship, I can't emphasize it enough, was her purpose. She protected, she is the warrior, she is the defender of the USS Enterprise when the United States Navy only had 1 carrier left in operation after sinking the other carriers. And yes, the USS Ranger was also in operation, but she was in the Atlantic. And the Saratoga, I'm not sure where the Saratoga was at that time, but the North Carolina, throughout the wars, her purpose was to escort aircraft carriers, offshore bombardments, and fight other battleships if there's ever a scenario that happened. And it did really happen. The USS Washington, which was the sister ship to the North Carolina, was engaging one of the Congo-class battleships, or rather fast battleship, battle cruiser, whatever you want to say. And in that battle, the USS Washington won. And one of the key features about the North Carolina that is noticeable, and what the United States was crowned for, was radar fire control. The word radar was really from the United States when it comes to naval. The British, the Germans have developed radar before the Americans, especially when it comes to frequency, because if you know, the units to frequency is hertz, and the name hertz comes from a German man, with the British developing more into radar and trying to find ways to use radar. The United States hit the bullseye when it comes to radar, because with radar technology on the fire controls, it was able to give such superb accuracy, identify the ship distance, calculated with early analog computers, the right distance, on trigonometry, mathematics, all the kinematic equations, physics, to develop this projectile motion to aim the turrets correctly and land the shells. Before, when it comes to naval engagements, most battleship with fire control system identify the range of the ship, the enemy ship, and they do trial and error, where they aim the cannons, they fire the spotter, which be on the tower of the bridge or wherever the tower of the ship, especially on the Yamato, which the Japanese tend to do a lot. The Fuso, they be on top of the deck, on top of the little tower right here, with the binoculars. You can actually see the binoculars if I can inch over the battle button, but there's binoculars on top of these. Yeah, you can see it right there. Look at it. And what they do is that they spot where the shells land, and they will calculate or actually correct the angle to fire again. This is not as accurate as the North Carolina, because the fire control system was such a advanced technology, which they allow the computer to actually recalculate the angle and give it a better average and much faster, because just because you spotted the ship out in distance and engage it with the rangefinder, because the rangefinder is right on top of the ship, it tells you the distance from the enemy ship. Just because you find the distance, you go down to the boardroom, you have a group of people, they'll be doing the math, and then they will tell the crew to actually aim the turrets. And when you have 6 turrets like the Fuso, it takes a lot of teamwork to actually aim the turrets. With the American battleships, especially in the Iowa, because the Iowa being a newer version of the North Carolina and improved with better fire control system, they were able to lock onto the target rather than doing a lot of math. But they still gotta do math. I've been on the Iowa, and I've seen the boardroom where the guy talked about how these people would do the math and try and pinpoint the target. And it's a game of Battleship. If you guys ever played the game Battleship, where it's like F1, F9, all that stuff. But basically, the fire control system is the biggest feature on American battleship compared to the Yamato, the Bismarck, and all the other nations. The British did have a fire control system which they took from the Americans, but the Americans are the one for crediting such advanced technology used into the war. Now the question is, was this ever used? Yes, the USS Washington against the Kurashima battleship. And one thing about the radar fire control system is that you don't have to see the enemy ship, enabling the ability of blind fire control system. Meaning that you can see the enemy at nighttime, pitch dark, with just radar sending out in the distance, identifying the location of the ship, and then firing your shot and able to land the shells. In the battle against Kurashima with the Washington landed 20 shells onto Kurashima after firing 100 salvos, while Kurashima, shooting at the Washington, cannot directly see Washington, cannot correct the aim because it was pitch dark at night and there was no full moon, I'm assuming, because if there's full moon then you can see the enemy. But think about going out into the desert and it's pitch dark, you can't see anything except the stars. And with the advantage of radar fire control system, you're able to have way better accuracy. So that is the biggest historical characteristic with the North Carolina. I want to point out that the North Carolina is a different design from the predecessor ship like the Colorado and the New Mexico. Those ships are dreadnought design. This is the new generation American battleships. Like I said, the purpose of these ships are different. So the North Carolina has slightly less armor than the New Mexico, which trades for better speed on the North Carolina. So North Carolina definitely goes faster than the Colorado. The North Carolina does have triple gun setup, which is pretty nice. This is the new standard for the American battleship on the Iowa, the South Dakota. Other than that, her main source of damage is really her anti-air, judging from the fact that I have a 99 rating. Like I said, these ships were designed to escort aircraft carriers, and aircraft carriers are doing the heavy lifting. Everyone depends on aircraft carriers. If aircraft carriers couldn't do their job and they get sunk early into the battle, then you're pretty much screwed against the enemy aircraft carrier, which in this case, the Pacific Theater, the Japanese versus the American aircraft carriers. So let's talk about the features and her performance on warships. Now, after rambling on for 10 minutes straight, or rather 15, or I don't know how many minutes, about the fire control system and how important it is to have a good fire control system to actually land the salvo, does this translate to the fact that the North Carolina should be the most accurate battleship on warship? On warships, in a very disappointing way, if I were to gather my thoughts, the North Carolina is the least accurate Tier 8 ship compared to the Bismarck, not the Bismarck, the Tirpitz, and the Amagi. And the reason why is that I'm not sure what Wargaming was doing, but it's one reason, mainly is understandable reason, reasonable reason, is that she has triple gun setup while the other ships have twin gun setup. So those twin guns tend to be much more accurate and smaller dispersion than the triple gun, because the triple gun, what the triple gun engages is that it's better grouping, but a much worser dispersion, because you have triple gun. If triple guns were very accurate, then they'd probably be overpowered, breaking the game balance, and it wouldn't be fun when you're going against these type of ships, because you know for a fact that these ships will always beat you in the battle. So the North Carolina has the poorest accuracy, which contradicts my point about the fire control system. But to the game extent, to the game perspective, it doesn't matter, because we are the fire control system. There's nobody behind us doing the math, trying to calculate the angle. We just aim, fire, and land these shells. So fire control system is useless in this game anyway from the beginning, and we can't utilize radar. So it's disappointing, the fact that North Carolina is the least accurate Tier 8 ship, even though in World War II, historically speaking, these ships were considered the most accurate battleship at their time. Might be balancing reasons. I can see the balance in it, why these ships should be inaccurate, but they can be extremely inaccurate at times. It kind of disappoints me. Sometimes when I play in the North Carolina, I fire a good salvo on the broadside. I mean, like, it's really good, and I only land 1 shell, 2 shells, and it's kind of ridiculous. It really is ridiculous. but that's the reality with the North Carolina. With the Iowa has the same dispersion as the North Carolina, but the Iowa does have the tier 9 upgrade where you increase the main battery accuracy, which the North Carolina does not have. So when it comes to accuracy on the main armor on her 16-inch guns, they're kind of disappointing, and that is really her biggest flaw. Her armor. In terms of gameplay, like I said, the Colorado New Mexico has much thicker armor, so on the North Carolina, you will be getting Citadel much more often, and it doesn't really matter to stress this point because at tier 8, tier 9, tier 10, if you're playing Battleship and you're pointing your broadside, most likely you're gonna get Citadel because at that tier, everyone's running at least 15 to 18-inch guns, and those guns are guaranteed to Citadel you depending on the distance. So armor-wise, her side is really easy to Citadel, especially due to the fact that she has triple gun setup. With the triple gun setup, you have a bigger magazine Citadel. She is much faster, meaning that she has bigger engine, bigger boiler room, so she can get Citadel right here, she can get Citadel right here, so it's Citadels everywhere. In most case scenario, when you play the North Carolina, I tend to see people play the North Carolina with bow at the front, and it feels dumb. I honestly feel like it's really boring, and really I don't like that style. But the reality is that if you want to be effective and not die early in the match, then point your bow all day with all the tier 8 and above battleship, except the Tirpitz, because the Tirpitz, for some odd reason, has really powerful armor, and understandably the Tirpitz is the most thickest armor for the tier 8 category and even to the tier 9, except the Yamato and the Montana being the highest grade armor, rather the most powerful armor in the game. So armor-wise, you can expect yourself to get Citadel more often than Colorado, and when I transitioned from the Colorado to North Carolina, I felt that impact. It's there. You can easily die in the North Carolina. As much as the North Carolina looks big, menacing, and really monstrous, it's crazy to face one of these ships. When I first saw the North Carolina in tier 8 match in open beta, I was like, man, that ship looks very powerful. She can easily die from being Citadel on the side, so be wise about pointing your armor. Aside from that, her AA is superb. You cannot defeat the fact that she has quad bow 4 bounce, and they just shred planes. It doesn't mean that just because she has 99 rating, doesn't mean that the aircraft carrier can't sink you in one run. There's been case scenarios where I actually got sunk by aircraft carrier one run. Was I frustrated? Not really, because at the higher tiers, the only way to counter aircraft carriers is to stay in groups rather than spread out. And historically speaking, that is true. You have to stay in groups. Like I talked about the transport ship earlier in this video. You gotta stay in groups and multiply your AA power as a group in order to defeat your adversary when it comes to aircraft carriers. Other than that, her secondaries are pretty nice. They're not better than the Japanese secondaries, but they should be. These secondaries should open up at 11 kilometers or 10 kilometers, I believe, because these are on the Atlanta, and Atlanta is really opening up at 10 kilometers. So for balance reasons, the secondaries are not that far, and they're not, I wouldn't say they're better than the Amagi at all. I feel like she's the bottom of the list when it comes to secondaries. But one last note before we get into the game. Although the North Carolina is the least accurate tier 8 battleship in her category, she definitely punches the most damage per shell. Her 16-inch shells does more damage than the 16-inch shell on the Amagi by 1,000 damage, I believe, maximum damage. Does it make a difference? It makes a difference due to the fact that the North Carolina does have poor accuracy and poor dispersion and poor average result when it comes to landing shells and doing damage. But it doesn't take away the fact that she can still do a lot of damage. When you engage in a battleship at 10 kilometers in game, you can definitely outdamage the Amagi and Tirpitz if you correctly aim your salvos and land your shells. But her maximum damage per shell is the highest out of all the ships, and it's different from the Iowa because the Iowa does have 50 caliber main battery rather than the North Carolina 45 caliber battery. So it gives a good idea how much damage. 13,100. I think the Iowa was 13,500. Aside from that, another thing about her main battery is that since she is a new class of battleship with a more advanced fire control system, the older American battleship maximum range is usually 15 kilometers or 16 kilometers, and you go nuts when you're trying to fight another battleship, especially when you're outranged by a Fuso or a Nagato. The North Carolina stock has 21 or 20 kilometers of max range, which is more than enough, and you don't really need the fire control system, but you might as well add it on once you get everything unlocked. That should be the last thing you unlock on the North Carolina. But aside from that, she is overall a good ship, and she is worthy to keep because she should have been a premium ship for wargaming standards, being a naval legend of the highest decorated American battleship. So without further ado, let's set sail with the North Carolina and see where I can find a nice gameplay with her. Alrighty guys, we are playing on the map Northern Lights. So I am sailing in the North Carolina, and my gosh, the moonlight is shining off her armor and deck. It's just really astonishing. So you guys are curious what I'm going against. There is only 2 battleships, which is the Amagi and Nagato. There is a lot of destroyers, so this is probably gonna be a difficult game because, like I said, the North Carolina on average has very poor accuracy, and where you're going against, is it 5 destroyers and a bunch of cruisers, you won't be doing so well. So the first thing I'm gonna do is gonna make a move onto A, and the Cleveland is like, yeah, I'm not gonna go first, so I'm gonna go first. Because everyone wants a battleship to go first and get sunk by one of the 5 destroyers early in the match. Enemy force detected. I'm loading HE because they're curious, but chances are I'm going to face a destroyer on A rather than a the Amagi. Or I should have kept the, what do you call it, the AP with that Atago there. Well, that's too bad. We can always fire the Atago. Atago's going pretty slow. Oh yeah, he tried to juke my shots. And there we go, bounce off the deck with minimal damage. We're gonna give some support to this. Let's shoot down this little scout plane there. But let's give some support to Fubuki because Fubuki has got no chance against those, what's that called, cruisers. Okay. Torpedoes coming in. Cut the speed. And Fubuki took 1. We got a Citadel. Thank you, Lord. Yes, these shells do penetrate pretty good. What do you expect? She has 16-inch guns. Oh gosh. Oh, that's not good. Oh no, that's not good. Yeah, let's just fire AP onto that Kabuki. Yeah, everything is going down this plane. Oh, things are getting pretty serious. Ooh, this is pretty hot. Torpedoes to starboard. Yeah, everyone's dumping torpedoes onto me. Torpedoes to starboard. Torpedoes to starboard. That is salvo. 1 hit. It's very accurate, huh? And now I'm getting hit by the Nagato. Oh, I'm set on fire. Oh, 3 fires. That's great. Let's make our evasive maneuvers. The game is just going just fine. We got 0 flags. Made a solid attempt to try to get a flag, but it's not gonna happen. Oh wow! I didn't expect that to happen with AP rounds, but I'll take it. Some low damage. Okay, let's rush it right because torpedoes are coming. Oh gosh, let's not rush it right there. I'm getting focused like crazy. Doing some damage. This not going so well, is it? Ah, how did I miss that? Come on. Yeah, those destroyers really want me dead. They've been dropping torpedoes directly on me this entire time. Trying to get all my guns to reload at the same time, but continuing letting our ordnance. Oh, that's nice. We got a double citadel, huh? Yeah. You see the correlation here is that I'm not landing a lot of shots, but these shells do a lot of damage if I land them. So I don't know about you guys. Consistencies versus just a fluke that I'm doing good. It's your guys' call. But the game is looking very bleak. Oh shoot. And somehow I destroyed. Earlier I killed the destroyer with AP also. Not sure it's gonna happen again. But I could really use. Jeez. They really want to kill me with torpedoes. Don't override a shift. I can just slightly slip past that torpedo. That's a stock Nagato. Well, we did take a lot of damage, and I wasn't expecting this outcome. I was expecting to die really early and go another round and find a better game. But this is actually turning pretty good. Although I'm only doing only one gameplay with this video, I will definitely post more videos on North Carolina, just the game, no intro. Maybe America will land that Mahan there. Yeah, just give him more lead, random lead. Blind firing. Oh wow, we actually, yeah, one hit. Yeah, I'm getting a lot of one hits here. Not sure why. Yep, right off the deck. Nagato. Oh wow, there's a destroyer right there. 12 kilometers. I'm a little concerned. And Nagato's pretty angled. I'm not expecting to do any damage on him. Shall we go back? Because we need the points. Let's go back and assault the enemy. 4,000 damage. These shells can definitely penetrate. They have really good penetration. In World War II, out of World War II, the American AP shells have one of the best penetration, if not the best, when it comes to battleships. And Atako is gonna give me the good old high five. You guys think I can kill this Mahan by actually firing from the side? Yeah, definitely not. Not enough lead. I didn't see my secondaries go off. I think secondaries are 5 kilometers. Here comes the Amagi. Let's cut the speed. Yeah, Amagi shells are pretty deadly. I'm probably gonna die. 5,000 damage, why not? The reason why I'm gonna probably die is because I can't show a broadside against that Amagi. And that Nagato is slowly approaching. I think he's going for the ram. So we're gonna do the traditional high tier tactic by hitting that reverse gear. Because that's how we do it at the high tiers. Like, I mean, who goes forward? That's for dummies. Who wants to die? So we're gonna back it up as hard as we can. While we add it, let's lay down some ordnance onto that Amagi. And that Nagato really wants to kill me. I know for a fact he's gonna go for the ram. You know why? Because he's stock. He would do anything to get out of stock. Okay, we gotta kill this Nagato. Oh no. Okay, we're going forward. Fun fact. If the ship's pointing a bow at you, in order to do damage, you shoot at the superstructure, not the bow, because you're not gonna penetrate, it's gonna ricochet. Because the carriers have a decent amount of damage. Shoot for the bridge. Not into the bow right there, you gotta shoot right onto the main structure. We can finish off this Nagato, that'd be nice. There we go. So now Nürnberg is gonna be a scumbag and start shooting at me because he knows for a fact that I'm gonna die. So we're gonna pray that since he's a German cruiser, we can actually not overpen him, but get a random citadel.
The ship is on fire.
I'm gonna go full speed ahead. I'm dead. Yep. And there you have it, guys. She's sinking. This really is sad. Hopefully this game is good enough for you guys, but like I said, I'll be posting more types of gameplay in the future with the North Carolina and all the other ships that I've already played. I'm a little tired today, so I might be speaking a little bit weird. I don't know if that's the right word. Weird? It's weird? I feel like I talked pretty fast today. But yeah. Here you have it. I'm gonna wait until the game ends and we will see the end game result. The game went from very sour to actually pretty good. Alrighty folks, this is the after action report. Admittedly, I think the game was very short, but I really did like the way this game actually went. So it might be, I guess it's short for you guys and I want to say a second round, but like I said, I'm aiming for a shorter video. And I do have school tomorrow, so I gotta study for that calculus test. My gosh, calculus, oh my gosh. But back to the North Carolina, I did land 30 hits, sunk 3 ships, 3 citadel, and 1 plane was shot down. We were able to crank out 313,000 coins with premium. I'll let you guys know, some people don't know I have premium, but I do have premium. It's the only way you can actually survive in the higher tiers. If you ever go in the higher tiers without premium, then you're gonna need a lot of lower tier ships to actually crank your economy going, because you can usually on average you will never make money out of tier A and above unless you're playing probably aircraft carriers, because aircraft carriers rarely die and you don't lose any coins for like majority of the matches unless you get sunk by the enemy aircraft carriers or your team lose the battle and you're getting chased by the enemy team. But you guys are curious of where I land on the leaderboard. I land in second place. The Aoba is right above me with no kills and no planes, so he probably did a lot of damage with other people securing the kill. Let's see. The total amount of damage I did was 92,000, which is pretty good. Really is good at this tier, since 92,000 is enough to sink almost a Yamato. Really is. If the Yamato doesn't run any repair, if it doesn't bother any repair, you just free XP the ship and doesn't realize there's a repair button on there. But yeah. Aside from that, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and in the future, like I said, I'm going to be doing videos, if I find time, on ships that I've already done, like the Fuso, Congo, all those ships I've already done. I'm just going to find a really nice gameplay. I'm still debating whether I should do a post-gameplay commentary or a commentary while playing the game. I'm not so thrilled, like some people like go crazy when they do a live commentary. I just say what I see and I do what I say. So aside from that, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time on World of Warships.